Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The cerulean skies of Mistral loomed before Sean as his spacecraft breached the planet's atmosphere. His heart raced, a cocktail of excitement and trepidation coursing through his veins. This was it, the moment that would define his career as a diplomat and, quite possibly, the fate of Earth's alliance with the Galactic Union. Sean adjusted his collar, the stiff fabric of his formal attire a constant reminder of the weight of his mission. He'd spent months preparing for this day, studying Mistralian culture, customs, and language, yet nothing could have truly prepared him for the sight that greeted him as the ship touched down on the crystalline landing pad. The spires of the royal palace stretched towards the sky, their iridescent surfaces reflecting the light of Mistral's twin suns. A welcoming committee stood at attention, their blue skin a stark contrast to the silver of their ornate robes. At the center stood a figure that made Sean's breath catch in his throat, Princess Leia. Her beauty was otherworldly, quite literally. Her skin was the deepest shade of sapphire, her eyes glowing like twin amethysts. Sean forced himself to look away, reminding himself of his diplomatic training. He couldn't afford to gawk like some awestruck tourist. As he descended the ramp, Sean plastered on his most charming smile. "Greetings, esteemed hosts," he said in flawless Mistralian. "I am honored to set foot on your beautiful world." A ripple of surprise passed through the welcoming committee. Princess Leia's eyes widened slightly, but her face quickly settled back into a mask of cool indifference. The head of the committee, an elderly Mistralian with elaborate facial markings, stepped forward. "Welcome, Earthling Sean. We are pleased to receive you." Sean didn't miss the slight hesitation. It was clear that not everyone was thrilled about this arranged marriage. He'd have to work hard to win them over. As the formal introductions proceeded, Sean couldn't help but notice Princess Leia's rigid posture. Her eyes darted around, never quite meeting his gaze. Was she nervous? Disgusted? It was hard to tell. "Princess Leia," Sean said, bowing deeply, "it is a privilege to meet you. I look forward to our time together." Leia's response was curt, her voice barely above a whisper. "Welcome to Mistral, Earthling." Sean fought to keep his smile in place. This was going to be harder than he thought. The next few days were a whirlwind of official meetings, tours, and formal dinners. Sean did his best to charm everyone he met, but Princess Leia remained an enigma. She was polite but distant, always finding an excuse to leave his presence as quickly as possible. One morning, unable to sleep due to Mitral's longer days, Sean decided to start his day early with some exercise. He found a secluded courtyard, stripped off his shirt, and began his routine of push-ups, sit-ups, and yoga stretches. Lost in the rhythm of his workout, Sean didn't notice the pair of amethyst eyes watching him from behind a nearby pillar. It wasn't until he heard a muffled gasp and a loud thud that he realized he wasn't alone. Sean spun around to find Princess Leia sprawled on the ground, her face a deeper shade of blue than he'd ever seen. She scrambled to her feet, her usual grace abandoned in her haste. Princess Leia," Sean said, fighting the urge to laugh. "Are you all right?" I was just inspecting the architecture," Leia blurted out, her eyes darting everywhere but Sean's bare chest. "These pillars are very pillar-like." Sean raised an eyebrow, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Indeed they are. I find them quite supportive." Leia's blush deepened, if that was even possible. "I should go. Important, princess things to do." As she turned to flee, Sean called out, "Princess, wait!" Leia froze, her back still to him. "I was hoping we could spend some time together today," Sean said, keeping his voice gentle. "Perhaps you could show me more of your beautiful planet." Leia's shoulders tensed. For a moment Sean thought she might refuse. Then, slowly, she turned to face him. Very well, Earthling, she said, her voice carefully controlled. Meet me at the palace gates in 2 hours, and please, wear a shirt. With that, she hurried away, leaving Sean to wonder what exactly had just happened. 2 hours later, Sean found himself following Princess Leia through a dense, alien forest. The flora of Mistral was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Trees with crystalline leaves that chimed softly in the breeze, flowers that seemed to glow from within. "This is incredible," Sean breathed, reaching out to touch a nearby leaf. "Your world is truly a wonder, Princess." Leia glanced back at him, surprise flickering across her face. "You actually appreciate it?" Sean frowned. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" Leia looked away, her voice barely audible. "I had heard that Earthlings were uncultured, that they cared only for conquest and destruction." Sean's heart sank. So that's what she thought of him. "Princess," he said softly, "I assure you, not all Earthlings are alike, just as I'm sure not all Mistralians are the same." Leia's step faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "Perhaps," she said, her tone non-committal. "Come, we're nearly there." They emerged into a clearing, and Sean gasped. Before them stood a massive creature, its body covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors in the dappled sunlight. It resembled a cross between a deer and a dragon, with elegant antlers and a long serpentine tail. "This is a luminar," Leia explained, a hint of pride in her voice. "They're sacred to our people. Today, we hunt one." Sean's eyes widened. "Hunt? But you said they were sacred." Leia's lips curved into a smirk. "Afraid, Earthling. I thought your kind lived for the thrill of the hunt." Sean recognized the challenge in her voice. She was testing him, trying to provoke his wild nature. Well, two could play at that game. "Not at all, Princess," he said smoothly. "I'm simply concerned about the ecological impact. On Earth, we strive to protect endangered species, not hunt them." Leia blinked, clearly taken aback. "I see. Well, rest assured, the Luminar population is carefully managed. This hunt is a traditional rite of passage for Mistralian royalty and their potential mates." The way she said potential mates made it clear how she felt about their arrangement. Sean decided to press his advantage. "In that case, I'm honored to participate," he said with a bow. "What's our weapon of choice? Spears? Bows? Or do Mistralians prefer something more advanced?" Leia's eyes narrowed. "We use neural disruptors. They stun the Luminar without causing permanent harm." Sean nodded approvingly. "Impressive. Shall we begin?" For the next hour, they stalked the Luminar through the forest. Sean was acutely aware of Leia's eyes on him, watching his every move. He made sure to tread carefully, respecting the environment around him. As they closed in on their quarry, Sean noticed something odd about the Luminar's movements. It was favoring its left hind leg, limping slightly. "Princess," he whispered, "I think it's injured." Leia frowned. "All the more reason to complete our hunt quickly." Sean shook his head. "No, I mean, look at it. This isn't a fair hunt. The creature is already suffering." Leia's frown deepened. "What are you suggesting, Earthling?" Sean took a deep breath. This was a gamble, but he had to try. "I'm suggesting we help it, not hunt it." Leia's eyes widened in disbelief. "Help it? But the hunt! It's tradition." "Sometimes," Sean said gently, "new traditions can be born from acts of compassion." For a long moment, Leia stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, to Sean's surprise, she nodded. "Very well. Show me this compassion of yours." Together, they approached the Luminar slowly. Sean spoke in soothing tones, using techniques he'd learned for calming frightened animals back on Earth. To his relief, the creature didn't bolt. Upon closer inspection, they found a thorny vine wrapped around the Luminar's leg, cutting into its flesh. With Leia's help, Sean carefully removed the vine and cleaned the wound. As they worked, Sean couldn't help but notice the change in Leia's demeanor. Her movements were gentler, her expression softer. When the Luminar nuzzled her hand in gratitude, a smile broke across her face, the first real smile Sean had seen from her. "That was unexpected," Leia said as they watched the healed Luminar disappear into the forest. "I've never seen anyone treat a wild creature with such kindness." Sean shrugged, offering her a small smile. "It's not about being Earthling or Mistralian. It's about being a decent sentient being." Leia studied him for a long moment, her amethyst eyes searching his face. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "I have misjudged you, Sean of Earth." It wasn't much, but it was a start. As they made their way back to the palace, Sean felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this arranged marriage could work out after all. But Leia wasn't done testing him yet. As they neared the palace gates, she suddenly turned to him, her expression serious. "Tell me, Earthling," she said, her voice low, "what are your true intentions here? Why agree to this arrangement?" Sean considered his words carefully. "Honestly, at first it was about duty, about securing peace between our worlds. But now—" he met her gaze steadily. "Now, I'm genuinely curious to know you, Princess Leia, to understand your world, your people, and yes, to see if there could be something more between us than just a political alliance." Leia's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of something, surprise, interest, passing across her face. But before she could respond, a commotion at the palace gates drew their attention. A group of Mistralian nobles was gathered, their voices raised in angry protest. As Sean and Leia approached, they could make out snatches of conversation. "Cannot allow this farce to continue. Polluting our bloodline with Earthling filth. Demand an end to this so-called alliance." Sean felt Leia stiffen beside him. He glanced at her, seeing the conflict in her eyes. This was the moment of truth. Would she stand with him or side with her people's prejudices? To his surprise and relief, Leia straightened her shoulders and strode forward, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Enough," she commanded. The nobles fell silent, turning to face their princess. "I will not tolerate such disrespect to our guest and potential ally. The Earthling Sean has shown nothing but courtesy and wisdom since his arrival. Perhaps it is time we examined our own prejudices rather than clinging to outdated fears." The nobles muttered among themselves, clearly taken aback by Leia's defense. Sean stepped forward, placing himself at Leia's side. "Your Highness," he said, loud enough for all to hear, "I understand your people's concerns. Change is never easy. But I am here in the spirit of friendship and cooperation. I hope that, given time, I can prove myself worthy of your trust." A tense silence followed his words. Then, to everyone's surprise, one of the older nobles stepped forward. He studied Sean for a long moment before turning to Leia. "Princess," he said gravely, "perhaps we have been hasty in our judgments. If you believe this Earthling deserves a chance, then we shall grant it." Slowly, the other nobles nodded their agreement. As the crowd dispersed, Sean let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Leia turned to him, a mix of emotions playing across her face. "That was unexpected," she said softly. Sean offered her a small smile. "Thank you for standing up for me, Princess. It means more than you know." Leia nodded, a hint of a blush coloring her cheeks. "Yes, well, don't let it go to your head, Earthling. You still have much to prove." As they walked into the palace together, Sean couldn't help but feel that something had shifted between them. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time since he'd arrived on Mitral, he felt truly hopeful about the future. Little did he know, the greatest challenges and surprises were yet to come. The days following the confrontation at the palace gates brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Sean noticed the sideways glances from courtiers, a mix of curiosity and lingering suspicion. But it was Leia's changed demeanor that intrigued him most. She no longer fled at the sight of him, though her amethyst eyes still held a guarded look. One evening, as Sean pored over Mistralian cultural texts in his quarters, a knock at the door startled him. He opened it to find Leia, resplendent in a flowing gown that shimmered like starlight. "Princess," Sean said, bowing slightly, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" Leia's eyes darted past him, taking in the scattered books and data pads. "I came to invite you to tomorrow's Celestial Waltz. It's a traditional Mistralian dance performed during the alignment of our twin moons." Sean's heart quickened. Was this a peace offering or another test? "I'd be honored," he replied, careful to keep his tone neutral. Leia nodded, a hint of something, anticipation, mischief, flashing in her eyes. "Excellent. The dance is complex. I do hope you're a quick learner, Earthling." With that, she turned and glided away, leaving Sean to wonder what he'd just gotten himself into. The next evening, Sean found himself in the grand ballroom, surrounded by Mistralian nobility. The air thrummed with excitement and the haunting melody of alien instruments. Leia appeared at his side, her blue skin practically glowing in the soft light. "Ready to embarrass yourself, Earthling?" she whispered, a challenge in her voice. Sean gave her a confident smile. "I'll try not to step on your toes, Princess." As the music swelled, couples took their positions. Sean placed his hand on Leia's waist, feeling her stiffen at his touch. He led her into the first steps, his movements sure and graceful. Leia's eyes widened in surprise. You know the dance?" Sean twirled her, enjoying the way her gown swirled around them. "I may have done some late-night studying," he admitted with a wink. As they moved across the floor, Sean reveled in the feeling of Leia in his arms. Her initial stiffness melted away, replaced by a fluid grace that took his breath away. They spun and dipped, their bodies moving in perfect harmony. Leia's face was flushed, her eyes bright with exertion and something else, admiration. "You're full of surprises, Sean of Earth," she murmured. The use of his name, not Earthling, sent a thrill through Sean. "I aim to keep you on your toes, Princess," he replied, executing a complex lift that left Leia gasping. As the dance ended, they stood face to face, breathing heavily. The room erupted in applause, but Sean barely noticed. He was lost in Leia's eyes, seeing a new warmth there that made his heart race. The moment was broken by the approach of other courtiers, eager to congratulate them. Leia stepped back, composing herself. But Sean didn't miss the lingering glance she threw his way as she was swept into conversation. Days later, Sean found himself at a diplomatic reception, mingling with ambassadors from across the galaxy. He was deep in conversation with a tentacled being from Zarxus Prime when he felt a presence at his elbow. "Pardon the interruption," Leia's voice cut in smoothly, "but I simply must borrow our esteemed guest for a moment." Before Sean could respond, Leia had steered him towards a table laden with exotic delicacies. "You must try the flaming starfruit sauce," she insisted, a mischievous glint in her eye. "It's a Mistralian specialty." Sean's diplomatic instincts tingled a warning, but he couldn't refuse without causing offense. He accepted the ornate spoon Leia offered, noting the vibrant orange liquid that smoked slightly. "It's best savored slowly," Leia advised, watching him intently. Sean raised the spoon to his lips, bracing himself. The moment the sauce touched his tongue, his mouth erupted in flames. It took every ounce of his self-control not to spit it out. Tears sprang to his eyes as he forced himself to swallow. Delicious, he managed to croak, his voice strained. Leia's eyes widened in disbelief. You, you like it? Sean gave her a pained smile. It's certainly memorable, though I think I may have singed my taste buds. A snort of laughter escaped Leia before she could stop herself. You're either very brave or very foolish, Earthling. Perhaps a bit of both, Sean admitted, reaching for a glass of water. As he did so, his arm knocked into Leia's, causing her to stumble. The bowl of flaming starfruit sauce went flying, drenching the front of Sean's formal attire. The nearby diplomats gasped, but Sean just laughed. Well, Princess, he said, gesturing to his ruined clothes, I'd say this outfit is well and truly spiced up now. Leia stared at him, her mouth agape. Then, to everyone's surprise, she burst into laughter. It was a musical sound that sent warmth spreading through Sean's chest, despite the burning sensation on his skin. You are not what I expected, Sean of Earth, Leia said, her eyes sparkling with genuine amusement. As attendants rushed to help clean up the mess, Sean leaned in close to Leia. I hope that's a good thing, Princess, he murmured. A blush deepened the blue of Leia's cheeks. Perhaps, she whispered back, but don't let it go to your head. The next day, seeking respite from the constant scrutiny of the court, Sean suggested a walk in the palace gardens. To his delight, Leia agreed. As they strolled among the alien flora, Sean found himself captivated by the way the light played across Leia's features. Your world is truly beautiful, he said softly. Almost as beautiful as its princess. Leia's step faltered, her eyes widening at the compliment. You shouldn't say such things, she stammered. Sean raised an eyebrow. Why not? It's the truth. Leia looked away, conflict clear on her face. Because this isn't real. It's just a political arrangement. You can't possibly. Can't possibly what? Sean pressed gently. Find you attractive? Admire your intelligence and strength? Want to know you better? Leia's breath caught. She turned to face him, her eyes searching his face. You don't know me, she whispered. Then let me, Sean said, taking a step closer. Give me a chance, Leia. The use of her name, without her title, seemed to startle her. She reached out as if to push him away, but her hand landed on his chest instead. The moment their skin made contact, Leia gasped, her eyes going wide. Sean frowned. Leia? Are you all right? Leia jerked her hand back as if burned. I have to go, she blurted, turning to flee. Leia, wait, Sean called, but she was already gone, leaving him confused and concerned. What Sean didn't know was that in that brief moment of contact, Leia's carefully guarded secret had been revealed. Her telepathic abilities, triggered by the intensity of her emotions, had given her a glimpse into Sean's mind. And what she saw there, the genuine admiration, the growing affection, the desire to truly know her, shook her to her core. For days after the incident in the garden, Leia avoided Sean. He caught glimpses of her at formal functions, but she always managed to slip away before he could approach. The distance between them felt like a physical ache, and Sean found himself at a loss. It wasn't until a week later, during a state dinner, that Sean finally cornered Leia on a secluded balcony. Princess, he said softly, have I offended you somehow? Leia stiffened, keeping her back to him. No, Earthling. I simply needed time to think. Sean moved to stand beside her, careful not to touch her. About what? Leia was silent for a long moment, staring out at the twin moons of Mitral. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. About you. About us. This situation we find ourselves in. Sean's heart raced. And what conclusions have you reached? Leia turned to face him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. that you are nothing like what I expected, that you challenge everything I thought I knew about Earthlings, that you—" She trailed off, looking away. "That I what?" Sean pressed gently. Leia met his gaze, vulnerability clear in her eyes. "That you might actually care for me, not just as a political pawn, but as a person." Sean's breath caught. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he reached out and took her hand. "I do care for you, Leia, more than I ever thought possible." Leia's fingers tightened around his. "But how can you? You don't even know me, not really." Sean smiled softly. "Then let me know you, all of you. No more tests, no more games, just us." Leia hesitated, then nodded. "All right," she whispered. "But there's something you should know, something I've been hiding." Sean squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Leia took a deep breath. I'm telepathic. I can read minds, sense emotions. It's why I've been avoiding you. I was afraid of what I might see in your thoughts." Sean's eyes widened in surprise, but he didn't let go of her hand. "And what did you see?" A small smile tugged at Leia's lips. Kindness, curiosity, and something that might be the beginning of love. Sean's heart soared. He cupped Leia's face gently, marveling at the softness of her blue skin. "It is," he murmured, "if you'll have me." Leia leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. "I'm still afraid," she admitted. "This changes everything." "No," Sean said firmly. "It doesn't change who we are or how we feel. It just means we have a lot to talk about." Leia's eyes fluttered open, meeting his gaze. "You're not repulsed? Scared?" Sean chuckled. "Scared? A little. But mostly, I'm in awe of you, Leia. You're even more extraordinary than I thought." A slow smile spread across Leia's face, brighter than any Sean had seen before. "You're pretty extraordinary yourself, Sean of Earth." As they stood there, bathed in the light of Mitral's moons, Sean felt a sense of rightness settle over him. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with cultural misunderstandings and political minefields. But with Leia by his side, he was ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them. Little did they know, the greatest test of their newfound bond was just around the corner. The gentle glow of Mistral's twin moons bathed the palace gardens in ethereal light as Sean and Leia strolled hand in hand. Their newfound closeness was still a delicate thing, fragile as a soap bubble in the breeze. Sean marveled at the softness of Leia's blue skin against his, a constant reminder of their differences and the unlikely bond they'd forged. "So," Sean said, breaking the comfortable silence, "now that you can read my mind, do I need to worry about you discovering all my embarrassing secrets?" Leia laughed, the sound like chimes in the night air. "I don't read minds constantly, you know. It's more selective. And I promised I wouldn't peek without permission." Sean grinned, pulling her closer. "What if I want you to peek?" he murmured, his lips brushing her ear. A shiver ran through Leia, her amethyst eyes darkening. "Careful, Earthling," she breathed. "You're playing with fire." "Maybe I like getting burned," Sean replied, leaning in for a kiss. Just as their lips were about to meet, a shout rang out across the garden. "Princess! Ambassador! Come quickly!" They sprang apart, the moment shattered. A young Mistralian guard sprinted towards them, his face pale with urgency. "What is it?" Leia demanded, instantly alert. "An emergency council meeting, Your Highness," the guard panted. "There's been an incident." Sean's stomach clenched. He'd known the peace was too good to last. The council chamber was in chaos when they arrived. Mistralian nobles shouted over one another, their faces contorted with anger and fear. At the center of it all stood Leia's father, King Zoran, his usually regal features etched with worry. "Silence!" Leia commanded, her voice cutting through the din. The room fell quiet, all eyes turning to the princess and her Earthling companion. King Zoran's gaze softened slightly at the sight of his daughter. Leia, Sean, thank you for coming so quickly. We have a situation. What's happened, father? Leia asked, moving to stand beside the king. Sean followed, acutely aware of the hostile glares directed his way. The king's expression darkened. There's been an attack on one of our outlying colonies, a Mistralian settlement, destroyed by Earth weapons. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Sean felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible, he said, his voice hoarse. Earth would never... Lies. A voice rang out. Sean turned to see Lord Dravax, one of the most vocal opponents of the Earth-Mistral alliance, pointing an accusing finger at him. This Earthling has deceived us all. He's nothing but a spy, softening us up for invasion. Murmurs of agreement swept through the council. Sean's mind raced. This had to be a setup, but by whom? And why? That's absurd, Leia snapped, stepping in front of Sean protectively. Ambassador Sean has proven himself time and again. We cannot jump to conclusions without evidence. Lord Dravax sneered. Evidence? The weapons signatures are clear. And how convenient that the attack came just as we were beginning to trust this alien. Sean's fists clenched at his sides. He opened his mouth to defend himself, but Leia beat him to it. If you're so certain, Lord Dravax, then you won't object to a full investigation, she said coolly. One in which Ambassador Sean and I will participate personally. A hush fell over the room. King Zoran raised an eyebrow, studying his daughter intently. You volunteer for this mission, knowing the dangers? Leia lifted her chin defiantly. I do, father. We will uncover the truth, whatever it may be. Sean's heart swelled with pride and affection. He stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Leia. I second the princess's proposal. I have nothing to hide and everything to prove. The king nodded slowly. Very well. You will depart for the colony at first light. But be warned, this mission will be perilous. There are those who would see this alliance fail at any cost. As they left the council chamber, Sean felt the weight of suspicious gazes on his back. He turned to Leia, his voice low. Thank you for defending me in there. Leia's eyes blazed with determination. I trust you, Sean. Now let's prove to everyone else that they should too. The journey to the attacked colony was tense. Sean and Leia, accompanied by a small team of Mistralian guards, traveled in a sleek spacecraft that cut through the planet's atmosphere like a knife. As they neared their destination, the devastation became apparent. Smoke rose from the ruins of what had once been a thriving settlement. Buildings lay in crumbled heaps, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of destruction. Sean's heart ached at the sight. This is horrible, he murmured as they disembarked. But I swear to you, Leia, Earth had no part in this. Leia squeezed his hand. I believe you. Now, let's find out who did. They spent hours combing through the wreckage, searching for clues. Sean's diplomatic training hadn't prepared him for this kind of field work, but he threw himself into the task with grim determination. As the twin suns of Mistral began to set, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape, Sean noticed something odd. Leia, he called out, crouching near a twisted piece of metal. Come look at this. The princess hurried over, her brow furrowed. What is it? Sean pointed to a series of markings on the debris. These weapon signatures. They're not quite right. I've studied Earth's arsenal extensively, and this doesn't match any known configuration. Leia's eyes widened. You're saying these aren't Earth weapons at all? I'm saying they're made to look like Earth weapons, Sean replied grimly. But they're fakes. Good ones, but fakes nonetheless. A commotion from the far side of the ruins interrupted their discussion. One of the Mistralian guards came running towards them, his face pale. "Your Highness! Ambassador! We found something. Someone." They followed the guard to a half-collapsed building. There, trapped beneath a fallen beam, lay a Mistralian man. His blue skin was marred with cuts and bruises, but his eyes were alert and filled with fear. "Please," the man gasped as they approached. "Help me." Sean and Leia worked together to lift the beam, freeing the trapped colonist. As they helped him to his feet, the man's gaze locked onto Sean. Recognition flashed in his eyes, followed quickly by terror. "Get away from me, Earthling," he cried, stumbling backward. "Haven't you done enough?" Sean raised his hands placatingly. "Sir, I promise you I'm here to help. Earth had nothing to do with this attack." The man shook his head vehemently. "Liar! I saw them. Soldiers in Earth uniforms. They came out of nowhere, destroyed everything." Leia stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Please calm yourself. We're here to uncover the truth. Can you tell us exactly what you saw?" As the man recounted his story, Sean's mind raced. Earth uniforms, fake weapons. This was no random attack. It was a carefully orchestrated plot to sabotage the Alliance. But who stood to gain from such deception? A movement in his peripheral vision caught Sean's attention. He turned, just in time to see a shadowy figure darting between the ruins. Without thinking, he gave chase. "Sean!" Leia called after him, but he was already sprinting through the debris. The pursuit led him to the edge of the settlement, where the ruins gave way to dense, alien forest. Sean could hear his quarry crashing through the underbrush ahead. He pushed himself harder, drawing on years of physical training. Suddenly, the forest opened into a small clearing. Sean skidded to a halt, finding himself face to face with his prey, a Mistralian man in a tattered Earth uniform. The man's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with hatred. "You!" the impostor spat. "You've ruined everything!" Before Sean could react, the man lunged at him, a wicked-looking blade glinting in his hand. Sean dodged, feeling the whisper of steel against his cheek. He countered with a swift kick, sending his attacker stumbling backward. The two men circled each other, both searching for an opening. Sean's diplomatic training hadn't prepared him for hand-to-hand combat, but his Earth military background served him well. He feinted left, then drove his fist into the imposter's solar plexus. The man wheezed, doubling over. Sean pressed his advantage, grappling for the knife. They tumbled to the ground, rolling in the alien soil as they fought for control. Just as Sean thought he had the upper hand, a searing pain exploded in his side. He looked down to see the knife buried to the hilt between his ribs. The imposter grinned triumphantly, twisting the blade. Sean's vision blurred, the world tilting sideways. He could hear shouts in the distance, Leia's voice calling his name. As darkness crept in at the edges of his consciousness, Sean's last thought was of her. He hoped she would uncover the truth, even if he couldn't. The next thing Sean knew, he was floating in a sea of blue. No, not floating, suspended in some kind of healing pod. The viscous liquid surrounding him pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent glow. Through the translucent walls of the pod, he could make out blurry shapes moving about. Panic gripped him for a moment before a familiar presence touched his mind. Leia's mental voice washed over him, soothing and warm. "It's all right, Sean," she projected. "You're safe. We found you just in time." Relief flooded through him, followed quickly by urgency. He tried to speak, but no sound came out in the healing fluid. Instead, he focused his thoughts, hoping Leia would pick up on them. "The attacker," he thought frantically. "Did you catch him?" Leia's mental touch carried a hint of pride. "We did, thanks to you. And you were right. It was all a setup. Lord Dravax was behind it. working with a faction of isolationists who wanted to sabotage the Earth-Mistral alliance. They're in custody now, along with their conspirators. Sean's relief was palpable. They'd done it. They'd uncovered the truth and saved the alliance. But more importantly, they'd done it together. As if reading his thoughts, and perhaps she was, Leia's mental voice softened. Rest now, my brave Earthling. We have all the time in the world to talk when you're healed. Sean let himself drift off, comforted by Leia's presence and the knowledge that their future was secure. 5 years later, the grand ballroom of the Mistralian royal palace was awash with color and light. Dignitaries from across the galaxy mingled, their varied forms a testament to the diversity of the newly expanded Galactic Alliance. At the center of it all stood Sean and Leia, their hands clasped tightly as they greeted their guests. Ambassador Sean, Princess Leia, a portly Zarxian rumbled, his tentacles waving in what Sean had learned was a gesture of respect. Your efforts in expanding the alliance have been most impressive. Sean grinned, inclining his head. Thank you, Minister. But the real credit goes to my wife. Her diplomatic skills far outshine my own. Leia elbowed him playfully, a smile tugging at her lips. Don't sell yourself short, darling. Your charm has won over more than a few reluctant species. As the Zarxian moved on, Sean pulled Leia close, marveling as always at how perfectly she fit against him. Speaking of charm, he murmured, have I told you how stunning you look tonight? Leia's amethyst eyes sparkled with mischief. Only about a dozen times, but feel free to keep the compliments coming. Their flirtatious exchange was interrupted by a small blue blur that came barreling towards them. Sean crouched down, scooping up their 3-year-old daughter in his arms. Zara's skin was a beautiful blend of Sean's tan and Leia's sapphire, her eyes a mesmerizing swirl of brown and purple. "Daddy!" Zara squealed, throwing her arms around Sean's neck. "Can we go see the stars now? You promised." Sean chuckled, planting a kiss on his daughter's forehead. "So I did, little one. What do you say, Mommy? Shall we sneak away for a bit of stargazing?" Leia pretended to consider, tapping her chin thoughtfully. "Well, I suppose the fate of the galaxy can wait for a few minutes?" Hand in hand, with Zara perched on Sean's shoulders, they made their way to a secluded balcony. The night sky of Mistral stretched out before them, a tapestry of stars and swirling nebulae. Sean felt a familiar sense of awe wash over him. No matter how many times he saw it, the beauty of this alien world never failed to take his breath away. As Zara chattered excitedly about constellations and space travel, Sean caught Leia's gaze. The love and contentment he saw there mirrored his own feelings perfectly. They'd come so far from those early days of mistrust and cultural misunderstandings. Now they were partners in every sense of the word, diplomats, lovers, parents. "What are you thinking?" Leia asked softly, her fingers intertwining with his. Sean smiled, squeezing her hand. "Just how lucky I am. To have found you, to have this life, it's more than I ever dreamed possible." Leia's eyes shimmered with emotion. She didn't need to use her telepathy to know the depth of Sean's feelings. They were written plainly on his face. "We're the lucky ones," she whispered, leaning in to steal a quick kiss. As they stood there, bathed in starlight with their daughter's laughter ringing in the air, Sean knew that this moment, this family, this love, was the greatest adventure of all. Dear listeners, well, folks, you've made it to the end of our cosmic love story. We hope you enjoyed this interstellar romp through cultural misunderstandings, political intrigue, and blue-skinned smooches. Now, we're dying to know, was this tale of star-crossed lovers, literally, right up your alley? Or are you craving something with a bit more quantum entanglement, if you catch our drift? Perhaps you're yearning for a story that bends your mind like a black hole bends space-time. We're considering diving into the deep end of the sci-fi pool for our next adventure. Think consciousness-altering alien fungi, time loops that would make Doctor Strange dizzy, or philosophical debates with sentient nebulae. You know, the kind of stuff that makes you question the nature of reality while simultaneously wondering if you left the stove on in a parallel universe. So, dear listeners, here's where you come in. Drop us a comment and let us know. Should we keep things romantic and relatively grounded, or should we strap on our metaphysical seatbelts and blast off into the weird and wonderful unknown? Remember, in space, no one can hear you scream, but they can definitely read your comments, so make them count. Until next time, may your days be full of wonder and your nights full of stars, preferably not the kind that are about to go supernova in your backyard. Stay curious, Earthlings.